Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Tired Old Queen at the Movies. Hit that bell notification if you want to be notified every time a new video comes out. Now let's go see the one and only, the Tired Old Queen at the Movies, Steve Hayes.
Oh, Johnny, we haven't done a Noël Coward thing in a while, so I decided to do 1945's BLITHE SPIRIT, directed by David Lean and starring Rex Harrison, Constance Cummings, Kay Hammond, and Margaret Rutherford. Now, this was co-authored by David Lean and Ronald Neame. This was the first one that Coward didn't co-direct, although he is the narrator at the beginning of this movie.
Once upon a time, there was a charming country house in which lived a very happily married couple.
It came from the stage play, which is all about a writer who has a second wife, and he decides he's going to do a novel about how fakers, soothsayers are.
To the unseen.
I must say that's a wonderful title.
So he finds a mystic in the town that he lives in. He brings her out, and it's Margaret Rutherford. Now, Margaret Rutherford, her character is absolutely bonkers. And she comes and she gives this seance. And she has this whole flamboyant way of doing this.
Tuck castings for his supper. What should he have but brown bread and butter? I despise that because it doesn't rhyme at all, but Daphne loves it.
And they invite dinner guests to come and sit around like this. And she does all this skipping and taking breaths and everything in the Margaret Rutherford tradition. This is one of her most famous roles, Madame Arcati. And Madame Arcati does this whole ritualistic sort of seance thing.
Is there anyone there who wishes to speak to anyone here? Ah, now we're getting somewhere.
And nothing happens. And she says, well, if there's any sign, let me know. I'd love to know. She leaves. The wind comes up, and in comes his late first wife, Elvira, from the dead. She's a ghost. And it's Kay Hammond, who did the original production on the West End. She's a lovely, lovely actress. And from then on, he can't convince his second wife that the ghost of his first wife isn't in this room because she can't see her.
Elvira, dear, this is Ruth. Ruth, this is Elvira.
Come and sit down, darling.
So they're constantly playing tricks on each other and doing all these bon mots that only Noël Coward could write.
Ruth, you see this bowl of flowers on the table?
Yes, dear, I did them myself this morning. Very untidily, if I may say so.
You may not.
Very well, I never will again, I promise.
And Rex Harrison was at the peak of being the caddish, flippant guy. He was the perfect guy for this part.
Discouraging to think how many people are shocked by honesty and how few by deceit.
They get Madame Arcati back, and they're trying to get rid of her, get rid of Elvira, and they cannot do it.
Hickory rod and birch in bud, toad in the hole and toad in the mud.
And gradually one thing leads to another, and pretty soon there's another ghost in the house. And he's got to get rid of two ghosts. And Madame Arcati is delighted and perplexed and insulted at the same time that they thought she was a hack.
Tricks of the trade. Insufferable. I've never been so insulted in my life.
And one thing leads to several, and it's just nonsense, but it's all delicious from beginning to end.
But now I must admit I began to enjoy myself.
Oh, this is intolerable.
Rex Harrison had built up a reputation. He did a play for Terence Rattigan called French Without Tears, and it really sort of set the tone for him. And this movie helped launch his Hollywood career. He went off to Hollywood and he did a movie called Anna and the King of Siam, the non-musical version of The King and I with Irene Dunne. He then did The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, which we did on Tired Old Queen at the Movies with Gene Tierney, that lovely romance with a ghost, and he's the ghost this time. And then he was always a womanizer. He was always, even though he was married, he'd been married once, and then his second wife was Lilli Palmer, the lovely German actress. And while he was married to Lilli Palmer, he had a love affair with Carol Landis. And Carol Landis killed herself because he was breaking off their affair. And he found her body, and it was a huge scandal. And Lilli Palmer had just left him. In her biography, she wrote a great autobiography called Change Lobsters and Dance. It's one of the best Hollywood bios I ever read. And she said, I was arriving in New York. I'd just left Rex. I said, you either get rid of her drop Carol Landis or I'm leaving you. And I got the call practically in the airport that Carol Landis, I saw the papers, Carol Landis had been found dead and he had found her. And he called me, he said, will you come back? I said, absolutely. So she went back, they stood by him, they went to her funeral, but it was gossip all over Hollywood. When he did Cleopatra, which was the year with Elizabeth Taylor, the year before he did My Fair Lady, that was the first movie he had done since the late 40s. That's how much had affected his career. And he won the Oscar, and of course he went on. He was an irascible sort of guy. And when he was doing My Fair Lady on Broadway, he came out of the stage door one night and a fan came towards him for an autograph. And he just poo-pooed her. He said, oh, leave me alone, leave me alone. And she hauled off and whacked him one. And Stanley Holloway, who was playing the father of Eliza Doolittle, he's playing Alfred Doolittle, he was coming out the stage door at the same time. And he witnessed this. And he said, well, this is the first time that the fan hit the shit. Constance Cummings was a lovely actress. She was American by nature, but she went to England and lived, and she had a really good stage career in England. She didn't make a lot of movies. She was very, very, very pretty. She played the second wife in this.
We're neither of us adolescent Charles. We've neither of us led exactly prim lives, have we? We've both been married before.
But I got to see her. She came back to America in a play in the late 70s called Wings, and she got the Tony Award for it. And she played a woman who comes back from a stroke. And it was such a delicate performance. She was just lovely in it. She was just so nuanced and really, really wonderful. I was so glad I saw her.
Very sweet.
Thank you.
And a little naive, too.
Kay Hammond was wonderful. Kay Hammond had a slight wit this English. She says, oh, I think you're being rather nasty about this. Well, why don't you? You don't love me, child. I'm really disappointed. You don't love me anymore.
Believe me, Elvira, I most emphatically did not call you back. There's been some mistake.
Perhaps it was your subconscious.
You know, she's got she didn't do a lot of movies. Kay Hammond didn't do a lot of movies, but she's delightful in this. She's really, really fun, and she's very, very beguiling.
I expect they were about me, weren't they? I know I ought to feel sorry, but I'm not. I'm delighted.
And then, of course, you had Margaret Rutherford. Margaret Rutherford was one of those people, delightful eccentrics. You know, you sometimes there are people, I think, that work so hard at being eccentric, they achieve it. She was just naturally eccentric, and she applied it to her actor. She would always say, I never understood why people thought I was so funny. I didn't really particularly think I was so funny, but she was so funny.
She materialized the other evening after I'd gone.
Not to me, but to my husband.
Capital, capital. Oh, but that's splendid. At last, a genuine materialization. Da-da-da-da.
She's just so sure of herself as Madame Arcati. She comes in and goes, I rode briskly up over the hill. It was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Down with your head, up with your heart, and you're over the top like a flash, and skimming down the other side like a dragonfly.
I don't know if anything will happen, but we shall try anyway. We shall give it our best shot. We shall try. You know, she's so adorable with that face and everything.
Come now, take the plunge. Out with it. You've heard strange noises in the night, no doubt.
Margaret Rutherford's career was just made. People adored her. And she did this. She did The Happiest Days of Your Life. She did The Mouse That Roared. She did Passport to Pimlico, all these wonderful comedies. And then MGM took her on, and she did Miss Marple for Agatha Christie in Murder, She Said. And that led to her getting a part in the V.I.P.s, which we did on Tired Old Queen at the Movies. And she won the Academy Award. She got Best Supporting Actress of 1963 for playing the Dowager, who can never find anything in her bag in the V.I.P.s. And she's trying to check, why I brought this ridiculous bag. Now, I'm afraid I don't have my health record here. Well, I'm afraid you have to have it in order to fly. I don't know why. I went through a whole country with black water fever. Never had any problems. I don't know why. You know, she's just adorable. And then she made more Miss Marple movies, and she did Charlie Chaplin's movie, The Countess from Hong Kong. She always had this loyal husband, Stringer Davis, and she constantly had mental problems, but she was always a genuinely lovely, lovely, lovely lady.
It's been fascinating, from first to last. Fascinating. Oh, don't bother to see me out. I can find my way. Cheerio once more. And good hunting.
BLITHE SPIRIT is filled with the typical Noël Coward things about battle of the sexes, back and forth, like he did in Private Lives.
I remember her physical attractiveness, which was tremendous, and her spiritual integrity, which was nil.
The thing that makes Noël Coward so great is that his characters are They expect you as the audience to come up to his level. He doesn't pander down to an audience. Noël Coward expects that you know the English language, you know what he's talking about, you get all of the innuendos because you're intelligent people. That was how he always was. He expected everybody to be just as educated as he was. He had come from nothing. He created this whole persona of Noël Coward, and he expected that everybody else would do the same.
Was she more physically attractive than I am?
It's a very tiresome question, darling. Fully deserves a wrong answer.
If you ever want a really good read, pick up Noël Coward's diaries. They are a ball. They are such a riot. I always used to say that the best bathroom book in the world, you could just pick it up and start leafing through anywhere. Anywhere you open it up, there's a story. I remember him telling one story about how he was working on a TV version of BLITHE SPIRIT. And it starred Claudette Colbert and Lauren Bacall. He was so annoyed with Claudette Colbert. His entry in the diary that day was, Claudette Colbert, I'd wring her neck if I could find it. And I think you're going to have a laugh fest watching Rex Harrison, Constance Cummings, Kay Hammond, and Margaret Rutherford in David Lean's version of Noël Coward's BLITHE SPIRIT.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
I was so afraid of blowing fuses. Ready?
The popcorn can't be beat.